Hello friends, coming with a new concept, OR in 1 hour. So you have your OR examinations a day or two from now. Revise the whole of OR in 1 hour. Assignment, transportation, Simplex, CPM PERT, learning curve, the major chapters covered exclusively almost in an hour. So very helpful to you. In case you have any issues, do get back to me on this number. Wishing you all the very best for the examinations and hoping that you enjoy each of the lecture that is there. So 1 hour is what you have to devote, and majority of the base concepts will be completed in that 1 hour. All the best. Take care. So OR in 1 hour. Here the session starts. Alright guys, so on that note, let us start with the first chapter, assignment. Let me be very clear, we are focusing on the process, we are focusing on the exam. So exam orientedness is what I am going to give you. For elaborated history of any of the chapters, you can check my detailed videos. Here we are focusing only on the concepts as we are giving the exams in a day or two's time. So pure focus is that. Chapter number 1, assignment. Easiest chapter as far as CA final OR subject is concerned, and equally important as well. So on an average 5-mark question is what you can expect on this chapter. Let's see whether we get it this time or not. So assignment first is Hungarian method. How do you solve an assignment problem? What is assignment? Assignment is allocation of resources in the optimum manner. How do you start with the assignment process? Whether in a matrix form, what the question has to be in a matrix form. So in case the question is not in a matrix form, ensure that you are first converting that into a matrix form and then starting the other process. So first, question whether it is in a matrix form. Convert the question in a matrix form. Second, whether the question that is given is a balanced matrix. So सबसे पहले तुमसे चेक करना है कि matrix form में है या नहीं. If it is not there, then I have to convert it into a matrix form. Done? Then I check whether it is a balanced matrix. Balanced matrix, sir, what is balanced matrix? Number of rows should be equal to number of columns. If it is unbalanced, then we have to balance it by adding row or column. A dummy row or column which is represented by 0 in the cell. So suppose there are 4 rows and 5 columns. So obviously this is not equal, this is not balanced. How do you balance it? 5 columns will remain as it is, but here you will add 1 dummy row. The dummy row will be represented by 0. So if it is an unbalanced matrix, balance it by adding dummy row or dummy column as the case may be by representing 0 in the cell. Next, once balanced, what the matrix which is made by us, once it is balanced, that is number of rows is equal to number of columns, then the process starts. Step 1. Step 1 is row minima. Step 1 is row minima. What is row minima? Select the least number from the row and reduce it from itself and all other numbers in the row. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Say for example there are 4 rows. In all rows there are a lot of numbers. Select every row and from that row select the least number. So select least number from every row and reduce it from itself and all other numbers in that row. So if there are 4 rows, I will select 4 least numbers from each row, reduce itself and other numbers in that row, so that I get a 0. Then comes column minima. On the row minimized matrix, so जिसके ऊपर मैंने row minima already perform कर लिया है, so there will be original question. I will perform a row minima. So row minima करने के बाद जो मेरा question दिखता है, उसके ऊपर मुझे क्या perform करना है? उसके ऊपर मुझे perform करना है column minima. On the row minimized matrix, select least number from the column. Concept wise similar. So now I will select the column and reduce it from itself and all other numbers in the row. So this is how a row is represented. This is how a column is represented. Select least number from the column and reduce it from itself and all other numbers in the column. And if there is a 0 already there in the column, then the numbers in the column will remain as it is, because 0 when reduced from any other number, the number will retain itself. Step 3. cut all zeros using minimum number of lines. Now different professors teach it in different way, different methodologies. If you are following this method, please use it to the best of your thing. So cut all zeros using minimum number of lines. So there will be a matrix. Now there is a row minima, there is a column minima, and you will see a lot of zeros. How do you cut all zeros either horizontally or vertically, not diagonally, using minimum number of lines? This is very important catchphrase. Minimum number of lines should be used. So it may be possible that 4 lines se main cut kar raha hu, but there is a possibility that wohi same number of zeros can be cut using 3 lines. The 3 lines is correct. So cut all zeros using minimum number of lines. Focus all minimum. So all zeros using minimum number of lines. Check whether number of lines is equal to order of matrix. What is order of matrix? Say 4 by 4, 4 rows, 4 column, 4 by 4 matrix. It is called, the order is 4. 5 column, 5 rows, 5 by 5 matrix. Order is 5. Check whether number of lines is equal to order of matrix. Step 5. If yes, so if number of lines is equal to order of matrix, then you have to start the assignment process. However, if at step number 4 you find that it is not equal, what is not equal? If number of lines is not equal to order of matrix, then we have step 6, which says that if number of rows not equal to, if number of lines not equal to order of matrix, then select the least uncut number. So now we have cut all zeros using minimum number of lines. There will be some numbers which are uncut. So select the least uncut number, reduce it from all other uncut numbers and itself. Numbers on the line, so first I will speak of the uncut numbers. So for uncut numbers, select that least uncut number, reduce it from itself and all other uncut numbers. Then numbers on the line remain as it is, do not touch them. Numbers on intersection, so there can be an intersection. So for that number, add the least uncut number to that intersection point. Once this whole process is performed, again we will go to step 3. What is step 3? Cut all zeros using minimum number of lines. So at step 6, if number of lines is not equal to order of matrix, I will draw a new matrix using all these connotations. Based on this, again I come to step 3. Once step 3 is done, again step 4. Step 4 equal, I start the assignment process. Step 4 not equal, I go to step 6. Again reiterate the process till I reach to step 4 and step 5. So this is how the assignment process will work. 3 important concepts to be kept in mind while solving the assignment problems. 1. There can be a question on prohibited routes. What is prohibited routes? Assignment is not possible for a particular resource. So if there is no assignment possibility there, then in that case we call it prohibited route and we denote it by a maximum number m. Any number added to m, m. Any number subtracted from m, m. Anything done on m will always remain m, and there will never be assignment possibility to m, because assignment is done only when there is a 0 in our final matrix. So prohibited routes, you cannot have assignment possible here represented by m, and till the end of the question this m will still remain to be m. Concept number 2, if there is sales, revenue, income oriented question. So the question says that find the sales, find revenue, find income, or such things where connection of sales, revenue and income is there, then in that case those are called as maximized type of problems. In operations research assignment, we have to solve it as per minimized. So what we will do is, first we will convert this maximized type of problems to minimized type of problems. How do we do that? By selecting the highest number in the whole matrix, reduce that, take that number and subtract all other numbers from that number, and you will get a minimized matrix. Solve like we have solved any other assignment problem, and then when the final allocation is to be done, do it on the maximized matrix. I hope I am clear. So sales, revenue, income in the structure, convert maximize to minimize. How do you do that? Select the highest number from the matrix, reduce it from itself, and others it will give you a minimized matrix. Start using the aforesaid procedure, you will get a final solution, put it at the maximized matrix, game over. Next is unbalanced matrix. Or what is unbalanced matrix? Unbalanced matrix means where your number of rows is not equal to number of columns. Add a dummy or a dummy row or a dummy column, as the case may be, balance it, and only then you can start with the assignment process. So this is how the process works. These are the major concepts on which the question can be asked. Again, in detail, there are a lot of other things as well, but in a nutshell, this is how assignment works. Start with the new chapter, transportation. Very, very important from exam point of view again. So assignment, transportation, both very important. Transportation is a little bit tricky as compared to assignment. Let us now ensure that we get through with this chapter as well. So we are now focusing on transportation. Consists of two main steps, IBFS and OST. IBFS stands for Initial Basic Feasible Solution. So first thing that you have to do when you are solving a transportation problem is to ensure that you get your IBFS. Once this is done, you have to focus on OST, Optimality Solution Test. So two main steps is what we are focusing on. One, IBFS, Initial Basic Feasible Solution. Two, OST, Optimality Solution Test. Moving on. In order to solve IBFS, there are three methods. Method 1, northwest corner. Method 2, least cost. Third, VAM, Vogel's approximation method. 9 out of 10 times you will get a question on VAM. Still, it is ICAI, can be anything. So northwest corner, least cost, Vogel's approximation method are the three methods to solve IBFS. Northwest corner, focus on the northwest number. So if there is a northwest number, select your requirement and availability, whichever is lower, allocate according to that, and the one either row, other requirement or availability, whichever becomes 0, eliminate that. Focus on the least cost in the least cost matrix method. So here again you will select the least cost, requirement, availability, whichever is lower is allocated there. Based on that, either requirement or availability, whichever was lower will become 0. Eliminate that row or column as the case may be. Moving on to the most important, VAM, Vogel's approximation method. What does Vogel's approximation method say? It says that you start with penalty. How do you give penalty? Penalty is the difference of least cost and next least cost for each row and column. So for every row and column, here you have a penalty which is nothing but your least cost and next least cost difference. So first we will find out penalty for each row and column. So there will be a row, there will be a row. So this is the penalty. There will be a column. So this is the penalty. From this row and column together, enter from the highest penalty. So whichever is the highest penalty, enter from that highest penalty, go to the least cost, and then allocate quantity based on requirement or availability, whichever is lower. Eliminate the row or column that has been satisfied, which becomes 0. That means enter from the highest penalty. If there is a tie in the penalty, enter and select the one with highest quantity. The focus is highest quantity. So if there is a tie in penalty, suppose 2 and 2, enter from both of them and see where highest quantity can be allocated, and we will select that penalty. Again, once that is done, eliminate the row or column that has been satisfied. This will complete your IBFS for Vogel's approximation method. Once IBFS for Vogel's is done, we move on to the next main step, which is OST, Optimality Solution Test, the most important point for transportation. First, write the initial basic feasible solution as obtained by IBFS. Then what do you do? Check for degeneracy. How do you check for degeneracy? You have to see whether number of allocations is equal to m plus n minus 1. What is m? Number of rows. What is n? Number of columns. So number of allocations should be equal to m plus n minus 1 in order that we can move on to assigning of values. But if it is not equal, then we say that the problem is degenerate and we will have to remove degeneracy. How do you remove degeneracy? We remove degeneracy by introducing epsilon E at least cost independent cell from where loop is not possible. What is the loop? Rules of loop. Start from the cell, go horizontal or vertical, turn only at allocations, reach back where you started. So for checking degeneracy, we will see number of allocations should be equal to m plus n minus 1. If it is not equal, we remove degeneracy, because then we say that it is degenerate. How do you remove degeneracy? By introducing epsilon at least cost independent cell from where loop is not possible. Pay attention to the minute wordings here. So least cost independent cell. What is independent cell? Where there are no allocations. On performing IBFS, you will get allocations in certain cells. Those cells which have allocations are dependent, whereas this is an independent cell, of which the least cost independent cell we have to choose. And from there we have to check whether we can make a loop or not. From the least cost independent cell where loop is not possible, we will draw a loop and check whether it is possible or not. If not possible, we will then introduce epsilon there, which works as a dummy allocation. So what is this epsilon? It is a dummy allocation. Once this dummy allocation is done, we come to know that number of allocations equal to m plus n minus 1. There can be 1e, 2e depending what is the difference here. So number of allocations 8, m plus n minus 1 6, then we will probably need 2 epsilons. Number of allocations 7, m plus n minus 1 8, we will need 1 epsilon e, and accordingly we will then move on to assigning of values. How do you assign values? Put 0 at the first row or wherever there are maximum allocations. So this is a procedure where you can choose either of the two things, not a problem. So there will be a matrix, put a 0 in the first row and then start. Put 0 at first row or where there are maximum allocations. Once that is done, then allocated cell cost is equal to row value plus column value. So if there is an allocation somewhere, then that allocated cell cost, this is an allocation, this is the cost of that allocation. So allocated cell cost, this allocation basically is the quantity that needs to be transportation. This is your cost per unit, that is per cost per quantity. So allocated cell cost is equal to row value plus column value. So you will have to check for row value and column value. You will then complete this whole assignment of values using this fundamental allocated cell cost is equal to row value plus column value. Once that is done, then comes the most important step of OST, which is calculation of net evaluations. What is a net evaluation? Net evaluation is unallocated cell cost minus row value plus column value. If you open this bracket, unallocated cell cost minus row value minus column value. As per your convenience, based on your mathematical knowledge, you can solve this point. If all net evaluations are greater than or equal to 0, so even 0 or more than that, then we say that we have reached optimality, OST done. If not equal, then how do we move ahead? Then in that case, select the cell with least number, that is largest negative net evaluation. So if there is a minus 2 and minus 5 in net evaluation, then based on number line, minus 5 is the least number, or to put it simply, largest negative net evaluation. So select the cell with least number, that is largest negative net evaluation. Trace a closed loop which begins and ends at the chosen cell. Suppose this is the cell that I am choosing. This is how my loop will look, just for an example. Put alternating signs in the cell. So here alternating signs means if there is a plus to start with, always the cell that you are starting with, which is the least number or largest negative net evaluation, this will always have plus. Then the next turn minus, next turn plus, next turn minus. These are called as alternating signs. Alternating signs. So at that we will draw a loop and there will be changing sign at the turns. Once that is done, then adjust and make a new matrix. What do you adjust? You adjust the negative numbers. So the negative allocation here and negative allocation here is what we will choose. Of these, the lowest of these the lowest allocation will be chosen by you, and from that we will make a adjusting new matrix. Again we will start with the process of check for degeneracy, go on till the same procedure, assign values, then we will have net evaluation. Till all net evaluations are greater than, equal to or 0, we will not say OST is done. So we will have to keep on making the new matrix based on this adjustment, and finally we will complete the transportation problem. Moving on to the concepts part. So the concepts that are there here, similar, some of them similar to assignment. Unbalanced problem. What is an unbalanced problem? Where requirement is not equal to availability. In that case, we will have to add a dummy row or a dummy column. So dummy row or a dummy column as per the question. So if there is a requirement shortage or if there is a availability shortage, based on that we will add a dummy row or column. The cells of the dummy row or column will always be denoted by 0, whereas the requirement whatever or availability, what is the difference part, we will put accordingly. Prohibited routes, again, is prohibited is you are not allowed to allocate any resource there. So that will be denoted by M, maximum number. This will never be allocated. Then comes maximized problem. So if there is a maximized problem, what is maximized problem? You can have revenue, you can have income, you can have sales. So if you have to find out this or similar kind of things, then in that case maximize will first be converted to minimize. How do you convert that maximize to minimize? By selecting again the highest number in the matrix and reducing it from all other numbers and itself, and it becomes a minimized matrix. Solve it, and finally the numbers are substituted from the maximized problem. Unique solution, this is the most important point in this whole transportation thing. Questions are asked on this concept of unique solution. Unique solution, also called as alternate solution, also called as multiple solution. Now, if your net evaluation is 0, see, net evaluation will either be positive, negative or 0. If your net evaluation is 0, then we will say that yes, unique solution exists. And there is a possibility that you may have to find out the unique solution. In order to find the unique solution, first we will check whether net evaluation is 0. Yes, if there is a net evaluation which is 0, then we will draw a loop from there. Once we draw a loop from there, then the normal process of allocation will start, and we will say that yes, alternate solution exists. Then comes degeneracy. We've already tackled it there, where the number of allocation is not equal to m plus n minus 1. We will say it is degenerate, and we will try to equalate that. Then comes net evaluation. Net evaluation is always 0 for allocated cells. What is net evaluation? Net evaluation, we know, is unallocated cell cost minus row value plus column value. Wherever there is a allocation, closely observe, wherever there is allocation at the cell, the net evaluation will always be 0 for that cell. So there will be certain dependent cells where there is allocation and you will see net evaluation is 0. But certain cells where the net evaluation is not 0, you may be asked that when can this particular route may be used. In that case, you will tell them that when the net evaluation of that independent cell becomes 0, we will be able to use the particular cell as well. So that can also be asked as a concept question. So again, this is the whole process of transportation. There are certain important concepts. Those are the important concepts which I thought are important from examination point of view. And this will complete transportation from my end, everybody. Alright then, now comes Simplex. As per ICA, complex as far as students are concerned. Alright, again, focus, exam point of view, focus on process, focus on the important concepts that are there, keeping the exams in mind. First thing, always remember, there can be two things. One, there can be a case law oriented question on Simplex, which is the recent trend and which I am expecting ICAI to ask. or they can be a typical simplex problem wherein you have to solve the whole problem. So first I will discuss as to how to solve the whole problem, which is like laying the foundation, which can be used even in the case law oriented questions, and then we'll focus on the 3-4 major concepts which are there in the simplex problems, again which can be asked in the exam. So now if it is a typical problem which is given, then we start always with equalizing the inequality. So a question can be 8x1 plus 6x2 less than equal to 14, 7x1 plus 3x2 less than equal to 7 or greater than equal to 7. Then in that case we see that there is inequality, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. So there is not only equal to, but there is a greater than or less than as well. So अगर वो greater than है, अगर वो less than है, then in that case inequalities है जिसको मेरे को equalize करना है. So the fundamental that I am using here is equalizing the inequalities. For equalizing the inequalities, there can be two things. If there is a less than equal to sign, then in that case add a slack variable 8x1 plus 7x2 less than equal to 8. So there is a number which is less than or equal to 8. इक्वल टू का प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, प्रॉब्लम है लेस देन 8 है. तो अगर वो लेस देन 8 है तो उसको इक्वल टू कैसे बनाएंगे? सो सपोज देयर इज 6 less than 8. So 6 less than 8, how do you equalize that? By adding 2. In the similar way, here you have variables. So 6x1 plus 7x2 less than 8. Then in that case, we will add a slack variable which will equalize the inequalities. If there is a greater than sign, so 9x1 plus 8x2 greater than equal to 5. So there is something which, there is an equation which is greater than 5. I want to equalize it. How do I equalize it? By subtracting the surplus which is there. Here there was some slack, there was a vacuum, 6 less than 8, there was a vacuum of 2. Add किया मैंने slack variable को. Here there is something excess, subtract किया मैंने surplus variable को. So if there is a greater than equal to sign, then in that case subtract the surplus variable. Now by subtracting the surplus variable, there is a issue which is next, which is like says check for identity matrix. So your identity matrix has to be a positive number. Because of this subtraction, that positivity goes out. In order to get that positivity back, we will add an artificial variable which is denoted as a. So less than equal to sign, add slack variable, greater than equal to sign, subtract surplus variable and add artificial variable simultaneously. Then check for identity matrix. So identity matrix I have mentioned here, 1 0 0 1, 2-tier identity matrix, 1 0 0 0 1 0 0 0 1, 3-tier identity matrix, so on and so forth. So slack, surplus, artificial, as the case may be, put whatever it is, ensure that there is a identity matrix in the simplex table that we are going to make. Coefficient for slack and surplus in the objective function will always be represented by 0, whereas for artificial variable it will be represented as m. If there is a maximization type problem, then it will be minus m, again in the objective function. If it is a minimum type problem, then it will be positive m, again in the objective function. Optimality is reached when in max type problems, when all NER is less than or equal to 0. Optimality is reached when in minimization type problems, when all NER is greater than or equal to 0. So in max type problems, NER should be less than equal to 0. In min type problems, NER should be greater than or equal to 0. So this is the initial steps that we need to take care of. So convert the given equation into a revised equation. How do you do that? Slack surplus variable add करने के बाद. Then step 2, put revised matrix in a simplex compatible form. What is a simplex compatible form? Program per unit quantity, x1, x2, s1, s2, a1, a2. This is just a pro forma, just a sample. In this simplex compatible form, you should also have the identity matrix, and based on that you can start with your simplex process. Calculation of NER. different people have different methodologies. Basically, it is Cj minus Zj. Cj is the main equation, the objective function equation. For that, there is a coefficient. That is what is main equation coefficient, which is Cj minus Zj. You can refer your notes for that. So Zj basically is your program per unit into coefficient of elements. So that we will have to find out. Cj minus Zj gives you NER, and NER will give you optimality. So in a maximization type problem, if this NER is less than equal to 0, then I will say I have reached optimality. If this NER in a minimization type problem, all NER is greater than 0, we will say we have reached optimality. If we reached optimality, fair enough. But what if we do not? So NER for maximization, optimality reached when NER is negative or 0. If positive, then select the highest number and make a incoming variable from that highest number. So maximization type problem, then NER positive. तो जो भी NER मेरा positive आया है, उस positive NER में से highest number select करने का and make an incoming variable from that number key column. I am assuming 2 days after you have exam, so we are in a proper note as to what I am trying to say. NER for minimization, optimality reached when NER positive or 0. If there is negative, then select the lowest number and make an incoming variable from there, which is also called as a key column. Step 5, calculate replacement ratio. So now we have made the entry here, just assuming that this is the highest number or lowest number as the case may be. This is my key column. Now I will have to make a key row which will be decided by my RR, replacement ratio, which is nothing but quantity upon respective key column element. So quantity upon respective key column element will give me something called as RR, replacement ratio. Select the lowest replacement ratio. So replacement ratio 1, replacement ratio 2. Select the lowest replacement ratio. Either it can be a maximum or maximization type problem or minimization type problem. You still have to select the lowest replacement ratio and make an outgoing variable from that lowest number. So suppose this is the lowest number, this becomes your outgoing variable. So here, this is my key column, this becomes my key row, which is the lowest RR. In replacement, if replacement ratio is negative or infinite, then in that case you have to ignore the replacement ratio. If there is a tie in replacement ratio, select row with the highest key element. Alright, so select the row with highest key element. What is this key element? So there is a key column, there is a key row, there are key elements here. So select those key elements, whichever is highest is what will form your replacement ratio. Draw the next table. For the next table, your incoming variable replaced by outgoing variable. So now there is an outgoing variable which we have got because of this replacement ratio. Now this outgoing variable will be replaced by incoming variable by putting the formula key row upon key element. What is key element? Intersection of incoming and outgoing variable. So outgoing variable, incoming variable, there is an intersection. This is your key element, and key row we all know is your outgoing variable numbers. That becomes your incoming variable for the next matrix or for the next table. So incoming variable replaced by outgoing variable, key row upon key element, intersection of incoming and outgoing variables. For old program, now replace. So see, there will be two programs. One, say for example S1, one S2. One is because of this outgoing variable, and say there is an incoming variable. So this here replacement will be done. This old program is now again will remain S2, but with some new numbers. What will be those new numbers? Old program. So already old program is there, that minus key row is this, old, or you can say the outgoing variable. Key row is basically your outgoing variables into FR is nothing but non-key element upon key element. What is your non-key element? your intersection is there. So this intersection is your key element. The other number is your non-key element. So for old program, minus key row into fixed ratio. Fixed ratio is non-key element upon key element. So old program minus key row into fixed ratio. Fixed ratio is non-key element upon key element. Here I will get the old program in new numbers. This process will now again continue with my NER. NER I will check whether reached for optimality. If yes, then I will say I am done with the question. If not, the process will be reiterated. Continue till the process of optimality is reached. Now, as far as concepts are concerned, three major concepts to be taken care of. First is degeneracy. What is degeneracy? When there is a tie in replacement ratio or 0 in the quantity column, we say that there is degeneracy. Second concept is alternate solution. When do you know that there is an alternate solution? When in your last optimality table, as in the optimality table which gives you the final answer, say for example S1, S2 and say there is X1. So this gives you a NER of say in case of maximization type problem it should be less than or equal to 0. So here I'll just give you an example. Suppose there is an X1, X2, S1, S2 and say A1, just an example, hypothetical. This X1 will always have a NER 0 because it is in the final solution. S1 will always have a NER 0 because it is in the final solution. S2 will always have a NER 0 because it is in the final solution. But if there is a X2 which also has a NER 0 or there is a A1 which also has a NER 0, which even though are not there in the final solution, then we will say that alternate solution exists and that's the reason they have a NER which is 0. So having NER 0 will mean that yes, you can use those numbers also for your alternate solution. So again, we will make an incoming variable, outgoing variable, we will form a new matrix and give us the final alternate solution. So if in the last optimality table NER is equal to 0, even though not in final program, then it is alternate solution. And last concept, infeasible solution. If in the final program there is an artificial variable, we will say that the solution is infeasible. So this majorly summarizes the concepts of simplex. Again, exam oriented point of view. Thank you. Now, the most important chapter of OR, CPM PERT. Question number 5 or 6 usually asked by ICAI, 8 to 10 marks weightage. Again, a guaranteed question. Well, if you ask me, assignment, transportation, CPM PERT, all of these chapters have huge, confirmed weightage in the examination. So 9 out of 10 times you will see a CPM PERT, transportation, assignment, these 3 chapters being the major part of operations research. Anyways, moving on. Now CPM PERT divided into 3 parts. One, CPM calculation of floats. That is what we will term. So one part is that. Second, part 2 is PERT, wherein we have a lot of calculation in terms of probabilities. And third is crashing, where we try to reduce the critical path and at the same time also reduce the cost that is involved. So here, first in line is the CPM critical path method. What is critical path? It is used to determine the project duration and it is the longest path of the project. As you know, this is a quick revision session, hardly going to take 15 minutes to explain the whole CPM PERT. So in terms of diagram, please practice on your own. So CPM PERT, determine project duration, the longest path called as the critical path. What are the concepts as far as critical path is concerned? First, activity. Activity, a definite beginning and ending denoted by an arrow. So here, activity 1 to 2, activity 2 to 3. This is an activity, has a beginning, has an ending, has a beginning, has a ending. Second, event, beginning and ending point of an activity. This is an event, this is an event, this is an event. So beginning point or can be an ending point of an activity called as event. Head event, tail event. Every activity will have a head event tail event. So event which ends an activity. So there is a activity 1 to 2. So this 2 will be your head event. Event which starts an activity is called as your tail event. So this in 1 to 2, 1 is your tail event. In 2 to 3, it will be 2, which is the tail event, and 3, which is the head event. So not necessary that 2 will always be a head event, will always be a tail event. It depends on what kind of activity it is involved. If it is a end of an activity, it will be a head event. If it is start of an activity, it will be a tail event. Now moving on, what are the general conventions that you need to keep in mind when you are drawing the network diagrams? First, go from left to right, and as far as possible go up and down as well. Second, head event numbers will always be greater than tail event. So here if you see 1 to 2, 2 is head event, 1 is tail event. 2 to 3, 3 is your head event, 2 is your tail event. Avoid bending of arrows. So this is what should be avoided. Straight lines should be preferred. Avoid crisscrossing of arrows. Again, crisscrossing of arrows should be avoided. You should again draw a straight line. I have seen a lot of papers of advanced management accounting. The questions they ask do not usually have bending of arrows, neither they have crisscrossing of arrows. So please be particular, do not bend arrows, do not crisscross arrows. Then come certain concepts. One is the concept of slack time. What is the slack time? Extra time available to complete non-critical activities. Critical activities will never have any slack time, will never have any floats. The reason being that they are any which case having the longest path. So if they are having the longest path, there is no scope whatsoever left for the critical activities to have any slack or float. But as far as non-critical activities are concerned, definitely they can be delayed, and the duration for which they can be delayed is called as the slack time. For now, float, similar concept, means the amount of time by which completion of an activity can be delayed without delaying the complete project completion time. So there is an activity 1 to 2, there is an activity 1 to 3. If 1 to 3 is on the critical path, we cannot delay that. But 1 to 2 can be delayed and still the whole project will be completed on time. The duration by which it can be delayed will be called as a float. Certain concepts to be kept in mind. ES, earliest occurrence time of tail event. So here what is going to be the earliest occurrence time of tail event should be mentioned. That obviously will depend on the question that is given to you. See, two things, one is E and the other is L, earliest start and latest finish. These are the two major concepts that we need to keep in mind. Earliest start, when can an activity start at the earliest? So it also includes your depending activity. So say for example, there is 1 to 2, there is say 1 to 2, and then there is 1 to 3, and then there is say 3 and 4. 1 to 2 has 10, 2 to 3 has 8, and say 1 to 3 has 10. Now for 3, earliest start will not be 10. Earliest start will be 18, because this 3 cannot start till 2 to 3 also complete. So yes, 3 is dependent on two activities, 1 to 3 and 2 to 3. 2 to 3 will come to complete here at 18th day. 1 to 3 will complete at 10th day. So 18 is the earliest start. Then is latest finish. When should the activity be completed at the latest time, so that the project will not be delayed? So latest finish means by last, when can the activity finish or complete, so that the project should not be delayed. So those two important concepts to be kept in mind. For every event, calculate E and L, earliest start, latest finish. Next, LF, latest allowable time of head event. So again, ES and LF you will easily get once you calculate your E and L. So earliest occurrence time of tail event. So for every activity there will be a tail event. For every event you would have calculated E and L. So tail event ka E will become earliest occurrence time of tail event, which is your ES. LF, latest allowable time of head event. So here my head event ka L will become my LF. EF is ES plus duration, LS is LF minus duration. Concept wise again we cannot get too deep into this because of time constraints that we have. Nonetheless, again, you need to solve a lot of problems here. I hope I have delivered the basics that you require. Then comes total float, which is LS minus ES, a pure calculation here, LS minus ES or LF minus EF, LF minus EF. I have already explained, total float is the extra duration that a non-critical activity probably will have in order that the project is not delayed and still everything can be completed on time. Ensure that total float for critical activities will always be 0. So two things, total float of critical activities will always be 0. Second, E and L of critical activities will always be same. So if there is a critical activity, every event will have its E and L. So those events on the critical path will always have same E and L internally. Next is free float, which is nothing but total float minus head event. Slack is nothing but a difference of L and E. So this is what is your CPM, critical path method, more based on the formulas. Concept of total float is what can be asked in the examination. Free float can be asked in the examination. Very, very important. Do solve one question related to this before going to the exam. So as I said, solve one question. Come to part 2. Part 2 here we have is PERT. PERT, see, here is probabilistic in nature. CPM is deterministic in nature. So in CPM you will get pure numbers which are very deterministic as to the completion of project. In PERT we realize that they are probabilistic in nature. What does that mean? That means that there is an uncertainty level which is there. Why do you use probability? Because there is a chance, there is an uncertainty of certain activities and events. How are those probabilities or possibilities calculated? Pay attention. 3. TO, optimistic time. TP, pessimistic time. TM, most likely. These are the 3 possibilities, these are the 3 probabilities that are included as a part and parcel of PERT. If you see this diagram out here, the probability distribution, normal distribution table, this part will be your TP, this major part will be your TM, and this part will be your TO. Obviously, optimistic time, the best time that I can complete in. Pessimistic time, the latest I can complete that activity. And TM, most likely, what is the best chance that I will be completing. Now, pessimistic time has a little chance. TO has optimistic time has a little chance. Majority chance is that of TM. So therefore, a combination of TP, TM and TO will give us T, which is also called as the expected time, which is TP plus 4TM plus TO upon 6. This is nothing but my expected time called as TE. So T is equal to TP plus 4TM. Why 4TM? Chances of TM are much higher as compared to TP and TO as per this normal distribution table. So that is the reason this has a weight of 4, this is a weight of 1, this has a weight of 1, and therefore total works out to 6. Now obviously, since there is probabilistic if the probability is involved, there will be variance, there will be standard deviation. So variance will be calculated as TP minus TO upon 6, the whole square for all the activities. But standard deviation will always be calculated of the project, and therefore there will be a total of variance of all critical activities, root of which will give us standard deviation. Different time estimates and its probability calculation. If you look at the PERT questions, you will be asked that if you have to complete a particular activity in a certain number of days, so there will be a critical path having 50% probability. So always remember, critical path has a 50% probability in PERT. So they say that 20 days the critical path is 20 days. So that means that in 20 days the project will be completed. There is a possibility, there is a probability of 50% chance. In that way, they may ask that if you are given 25 days, then obviously the probability increases. If you are given 15 days, then obviously the probability decreases. How much is the probability going to increase or decrease will be calculated by this formula. Given duration, which is your say 20, given duration that will be given in the question. Say it can be 25, 15 as the case may be, and expected duration which is 20, which is always your critical path, and standard deviation of the project, something that we have already calculated. This will always give me the final probability, whether chances more than 50%, whether chances less than 50%. If this given duration is 20 as per our example, the Z or probability of completion will be 50%. Moving on to again important aspect of crashing. What is crashing? Crashing refers to reduction in time and in cost. We see that there is a critical path involved, so there is time involved. Obviously, to complete the whole project, there is cost involved. What is the cost? For any project, the total cost is my direct cost plus indirect cost. Direct cost plus indirect cost. This direct cost will increase as we keep on doing crashing activity, whereas there will be a savings in cost in terms of indirect cost, because indirect cost is variable on the total number of days. What will be the rules and methodology for crashing? Pay attention. Crash activities only on critical path. Crashing non-critical activities will not result in any benefits, will only result in increase in cost. Reason being, the critical activities will still be the same amount and your critical path will be still the same number of days. So not resulting any benefits, but definitely your cost may increase. More than one critical paths are there, then crash all together. So once you have one critical path, that will always be a critical path till the end. So if there are more than one critical path, 2, 3, 4, how so many critical paths can be there? All have to be crashed together. Third, activity with least cost slope should be crashed first. What is cost slope? Cost slope is the cost that you are going to incur for reduction of one day. So one day मेरे को reduce करने का है अगर कोई project में से, तो उसका कितना cost होगा is given by my cost slope. In terms of formula, it is crash cost minus normal cost upon normal time minus crash time. This is my cost slope. In terms of ranking activities, cost slope. So here if I get say for activity 1 to 2 cost slope as 1, 2 to 3 cost slope as 100, this cost slope means that in order to reduce one activity or one day of 1 to 2, I will have to incur a cost of 150. If I have to reduce one day of 2 to 3, I will have to incur a cost of rupees 100. Based on this, I will give rankings for all activities. One with the lowest rank will be crashed first, obviously depending whether it is on critical path or not. Then we make this crash table wherein we look at the activities before crashing, we look at the activities after crashing, and finally the moment we see that the cost benefit is in our favor, that is the total cost will keep on reducing. The moment it stops reducing, we will stop our crashing, and finally we will redraw a new crashed network which will tell us what is the project completion time after crashing and also the benefit in terms of cost that we have achieved. So this for you is CPM, PERT and crashing. Very, very important chapter. Expect a sure shot question on this chapter. So please practice this definitely. Learning curve. Simple topic but very, very important as far as theory is concerned. Learning curve theory is applicable only when the output doubles. So keep that concept in mind before your examinations, that output double होगा तभी ही learning curve applicable हो जाता है. Say for example, learning curve is 90%. I have taken a small example, a quick example. So output is 1, output doubles to 2, learning curve 100 to 90. Output doubles 2 to 4, learning curve 90 का 90%, 81 hours. Learning curve 4 to 8, 81 का 90%, 72.9 hours. So that way, here as the output doubles, we can see that there is an application of learning curve at every doubling of output, which in this case is 90%. Concept of learning curve we all know. As we keep on doing the same activity over and over again, the same activity over and over again, obviously the time taken to do that activity will reduce. That is the concept of learning curve. So in this case, it is 90%. So if I am making the first output at 100 hours, second output on an average will take 90 hours. So there is a 90% learning curve applicable there. Here, as my output doubles, so 2 का 4 हो गया, my again average hours will reduce to 90% of my original 90 hours. If you see here, the total hours that are given will be based on my average hours. So focus here is on average hours, because average hours multiplied by output will automatically give me my total hours. So focus on in the learning curve chapter should always be on the calculation of average hours. So output 1, average 100 hours. Output 2, average hours is 90. So average for 2 is 90. So total for 2 will be 80. Output doubles, average for 4 is 81. Total for 4 becomes 324. Average, so again output doubles, average for 8 becomes 72.9. For total it becomes 583.2. So here, as I have written, always calculate average first. Learning will usually be given in terms of hours. If hours is not given, then output or rupees. Probably that depends on the question that the examiner is asking. Usually this chapter will come in your examination on theory point of view, but nonetheless simple questions can be asked based on this calculation of output, average hours and total hours. So forms an important part, can be asked for 4 marks. Learning will use learning curve should be calculated for cumulative number of units. 1, 2, cumulative 4, cumulative 8. So always remember for cumulative number of units. Now, what if the output is not doubling, but you have a learning curve? Then in that case, we will use this formula. Again, derivation, we will not be focusing as of now because it's a quick revision session. Calculation of average hours for number of units in case the output is not doubling. So if output doubles, I know it's a simple process. But if the output does not double, then in that case it will be calculated by using this formula. Yx is equal to Ax raised to b plus 1. What is I? Average hours per unit or per lot, depends on the question. So if it is per units are given, it will calculate accordingly. Lots are given, we will calculate accordingly. A, number of hours or cost per unit. This is usually the number of hours for the first unit. X, the total number of units for which y is to be calculated. So this y is the average hours for how many units? 20, 30, 40. For how many lots? 5, 10, 15 is my x. So y, average hours per unit or lot. A is the number of hours taken for the first unit, or to be applied on how many units or lots that are there. And this b is nothing but my learning curve percentage, which will be calculated as b equal to learning index equal to log of learning curve upon 2. This in all, when we will solve, we will get the average hours if the output is not doubling. And this almost summarizes the concept of learning curve. Wishing you all the very best for your examinations. Thank you. Hope you all clear the examinations in a very good marks. Ensure that the speed from the beginning is very quick, because advanced management accounting usually takes a lot of time to solve it. In case of any issues or queries relating to advanced management accounting, that is costing part, OR part, as I have said, feel free to get in touch with me through SMS, through WhatsApp, will be available for you. Thank you so much. Signing off, CA Sankalp Kanstiya. Thank you.